by grand unified theory, I'm recording now. So by a grand unified theory question, it's one where basically where you have to deal with two data structures explicitly. So basically, be sure that you've got basically it yeah. Basically, you just have to deal two questions, two data structures explicitly in that question. And I tell you which data structures those are. So you're not trying to figure them out. For all the coding questions, I'm very explicit about this is the data structure you're supposed to be using. Okay. And in case you're counting, that is 10 questions so far. Last 15-point question was about hash tables. So let me go ahead and go through this since I have two monitors, and that's great. By the way, I recently discovered that there's a laptop, the ZenBook Pro Duo, a $2,500 laptop, but it has a second monitor baked into the bottom part of it. Like the whole, you know how the Apple did their touch bar thing? Well, what Asus did is that they moved down the keyboard so it's at the edge, like they do for their gaming keyboards, and then they used all that space for a secondary monitor. It looks beautiful, and I very much want it, but it is very expensive. All right, so yeah. So the rules are, so I have the rules so I have 4 rules posted, or 5 rules. So exam is open notebook, internet, computer, etc. with the following caveats. I have this written at the top of the exam, by the way. 1. Feel free to use an IDE such as NetBeans to do your code. Don't care what the IDE is. You can use whatever an IDE is. Point 2. Use the final question to upload any code or work you want. So, right, if basically you're doing sketches and stuff, okay? Right? Or you're drawing things and you really need to upload that because, you know, you can't really post a picture for something, but you really want to, you know, your workflow involves doing something on paper and you really want to upload a picture of that. That's what the final thing is for. If you want to make sure your code gets there, and you're really paranoid about the text box messing up something in the copy paste, you can upload your code there. So use the final question, which is 0 points, to just put it. What is the cutoff for an A in the course? I will get to grading in a bit, okay? So let me get to the grading after the final exam. Okay. Point 3, do not communicate with anyone during the exam. Your work should be your own. Obviously, if you need to tell your little brother or to get out of your room and stop because you're trying to take a final, or that you're doing or that you're having issue, or that you're otherwise having issues, or something happens in your... Obviously, if it's just like a family member or something going on and you communicate with them, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm explicitly talking about, or if you're trying to tell your dog to be quiet, students are taking an exam, right? I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about, of course, is communicating your work with other people, right? Do not communicate with anyone during the exam. Your work should be your own. And point number 4, which is to cover my butt, if I find our questions posted on the internet and your answers are sourced from there, you will receive a 0. That's different from saying basically that, oh, I found the answer, I found some code for an unrelated question, I copy-paste that in. I care a bit less about that. You really shouldn't copy-paste code without knowing what it does. Here I'm saying if the question got posted on the internet and you got that question, right? So somebody broke my rule about not communicating from others, and that wasn't you who broke that rule. But you now go, oh, well, now I can use that answer. Yeah, I'm just gonna assume that you made a mistake, that you were... Yeah, I'm taking the kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out approach there, so... Metaphorically speaking, I don't actually want to kill any of my students. You're all wonderful people. Laser, you're making a lot of noise. Oh, all right. Is today the last day to demo, or is that the day of the exam? The last day to demo, I'll say probably sometime next week, next Tuesday. I will be trying to do final grades, get final grades assigned to you basically by the weekend. And then if any adjustments need to be made, you can email me about that. Okay. If for some reason like stuff goes absolutely crazy, like you get COVID-19 or your parent gets COVID-19 or something, and like, you know, you cannot get the work done in a reasonable amount of time or something. If it, you know, I can do stuff afterwards, after the class. Like I can make adjustments to your grade pretty easily after the class is over. All right. So is there a class meeting on Wednesday? No. Okay, now going back, what is the cutoff for an A in this course? It depends from semester to semester, but generally a 90 and above guaranteed 90 and above gets you an A. Guaranteed 80 and above gets you a B. Guaranteed 70 or above gets you a C. Okay? So the standard rules there apply. Typically what I do is that 90 and above is an A, always, never an A minus. And what I do is like I use the A minus to stretch the range down. So some semesters anything above 88 and 88 or 88 and a half or above has been an A minus, or an 88 has been an A minus, or sometimes an 87 and a half has been an A minus. Most of the time it's around the 88 range. Similarly, around the 77 has often been a B minus. So that's generally, like, so I'll be completely transparent with you. This is the way I deal with, this is the way I figure out what my curve is, generally. I will sort my grades from highest to lowest. And then I look for, a point at which where there's a gap between students, which is generally around, and generally there's a point, you know, generally I'll see something like 89 and a half, 82, 89.2, you know, 88.7, 88.4. And then the next grade after that is an 87.2. And I'm like, that's more than a point difference. There's the cutoff for A's. Right? That's how I typically do it. It's generally I try to see how many people, because the logic there is, well, this person's grade, if I round it up, it's an A. And is this grade really that different? And is this grade really that different? And is this grade really that different? But this grade and this grade, those grades are different. That's about the fairest way I can see it. And so that's the logic I use. It's not scientific per se, but it is understandable. Right? There's not really a mathematical formula I plug in, but it's understandable. Okay. There is a unbiased rule that I use there. You generally need above a 70 to pass the class. So just keep that in mind. Like 70 period. Not on the final. You just okay. So now I'll repeat what I've got so far. And again, I've only got the Reg X extra lab grades. It goes on, the Reg X extra credit goes on the lab grades, but any extra credit, but if you get over 100 points in a category or 100% in a category, those roll over. Those can, so that can improve your overall grade. Yes, I'll put in a rule that one of the labs is dropped. So I also want to take, before I go into the final, I want to ask people for their opinion about doing this in future semesters. This obviously won't benefit you, because we're done. But I want to know your opinion. So this semester, what I did for my 1051 students, who are again freshmen, and just between you and me, I don't trust freshmen to be able to tie their shoelaces. Having been a freshman before and made bad choices like, I think I'm going to play Final Fantasy XI all day instead of going to class. I told you I was a terrible freshman. student. Anyway, so what I've done this semester was like, because students can often, also it's programming their first time, they have no idea what to expect on exams. What I did is I gave, rather than giving out 2 midterms and a final, I've done 3 exams and a final. And what I do is I take the highest 2 exams. And I'm wondering, would that approach be good for this class? Do you feel? Like, now, don't drop the final. So that's a no from Michael. It could only help students, yes. You don't have to take... So there is a point for that. Data structures is too important to do that. Yeah, there is that. That's why. Now, because I haven't seen a need to do that for this class. Yeah, the freshmen needed the help. And honestly, this is the first time I did it, and I'm like, it's because it's a disruptive semester. But, yeah, and you only would have to take 2 exams. You could, if you were happy with 2 exam grades, you could drop the 3rd, but yeah. Yeah, in programming interviews, especially out of college, people say 95%. They come from, I'd say it's half and half data structures and algorithms. In fact, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you. So I'm going to say that the class is pretty evenly divided there. And I can definitely see both points of view, because 1, data structures is a super important class, and we shouldn't just simply pass people through. But, on the other hand, everybody has a bad day. So I will, I'll simply take this under consulting then. All right. So as far as like data structures, interviews and stuff. All right. Let's go ahead and share my screen for a second. Okay, so this textbook you've probably seen, although it's not really that expensive when you talk about textbooks. You can see it's about $27. Not really expensive, but it's fairly textbook sized. It is really good. Cracking the coding interview. It has a bunch of interview questions. If I haven't added your extra points to test 1, please email me, because I might have just missed it. Okay. Sorry, I thought I got everybody there. But Cracking the Coding Interview is an excellent book, but like basically there's a chapter about linked list questions. There's a chapter about tree questions. There's a chapter about graphs questions. Yeah, the vast majority of programming questions come from this class for interviews. If you're going for Google, you'll definitely want to take also Dr. Hughes's algorithms class, because people have reported that that's really been useful. And having gone through the Google interview process myself, I would definitely recommend algorithms. Okay, so, all right. Now let me go back to talking about the final exam. So to repeat what I've got so far in the final, I have got 3 multiple choice questions about here's a scenario, which is the best data structure to use. I've got 1 multiple choice question, which is which is basically here's quicksort, give me do these things and tell me which of the answers you should get. Okay. I've got 1 question that's basically going to ask you about the relative benefits of one algorithm over another. So for sorting. Then I've got a single question, which is actually like 3 different questions about a tree, 2 multiple choice questions and 1 coding question about a tree. One of my favorite things to do is say, here's a new type of tree. Here's the rules for the tree. And generally, it's not that hard. It's not nearly as hard as that kind of appears to be. Then we have a grand unified data structures question where basically I say, here's 2 data structures and you got to use them together in some way. And then, and I'm not going to say any more because spoilers. And then finally, I have a final question about hash tables. So each of the coding questions is about 15 points. And what I'll do for the coding questions is I'll have a rubric there, which will not only aid in my grading when I go back to do it, but also the point of the rubric is that I often use the rubric to say, hey, if you're not sure how to get points, here's what you need to do to get your points, right? So you're like, oh God, I don't know how to do this. This is a really complicated question using hash maps. I have no idea what to do, but I see that 5 points of it is properly iterating through a hash map. I know how to do that, so I'm just going to do that and get my 5 points there. And maybe I'll come back to it later, right, to get the rest of my points. So, right, those discrete points are there so that you can show me that at least you know how to do this much, right? I mean, so let me talk about, like, for my Python exam, right, which actually we went over regular expressions. So, like, we had a bunch of 20-point questions on the exam, and they were, like, 5 points, reading the file. So the question on the exam was, here, given a file, I want you to create a new file, which is the same as the old file, only it takes all social security numbers and replaces it with the word redacted. Okay? Which is fairly easy to do in Python, and once you know regular expressions. Fairly easy to do in Java once you know regular expressions. But, so I've said, it's 5 points for basically reading the file. 5 points for creating the proper regular expression. 5 points for doing all the replacement you need to do. And then another 5 points for writing the file out. So I said, basically do these 4 things, each worth 5 points. So that's what you can expect on your coding questions, to basically have some kind of so those rubric those points from on the rubric will basically also be kind of a guide for how to do these things. Okay, so I'm trying to help you as much as possible, because honestly I feel like it's hard that as much as that basically when you have an IDE in front of you, it's much harder to focus on the problem because the syntax gets in the way. Making minor syntax errors can really get in the way. All right, so are there any questions, anything that people specifically want me to review today, or any questions that people specifically have? No, regular expressions is not covered, nor is it needed. I was talking about regular expressions in the context of my 1051 class, the Python class. I teach regular expressions because that sometimes is the only class that some only programming class that some of them might take, because it's a nice elective course, and I feel like if you're going to take a nice elective course, you should learn regular expressions. Also because I run out of things to do in that class because Python's an easy language to learn. All right. As far as demoing is concerned, I have office hours today, which is I expect, yes, it will probably be busy. But if you need to also come to, if you need to schedule a demo with me or the TAs, literally just do so before the end of the semester. Preferably before the final, but before the end of the semester would be preferable. You know, or before the end of the semester would be great, so that you don't have to make any adjustments afterwards. If you have Wi-Fi issues during the exam, right, or there any kind of technical difficulties, just let me know. Okay. That you know, we're just gonna be we're gonna be as adult about this as we can. You know, things happen. Did you grade it? I plan on. I'm gonna go through it at the end. Give me a second. I was gonna go through and grade a lot of that stuff at the end. So if you have something turned in, you really don't have to worry about it. For the in-class assignments, if you have something turned in, you don't really have to worry about it. I will go through and grade those all. I have a system, it works. But no, apparently I missed grading that for most people. So, other questions? Otherwise, if that's it, then I am willing to go and just do demoing for the moment. So